welcome to my channel. My name is Daryl and this is Programming in Any Language. We are currently working with C#, but everything we do here can be done in Java, Python, and virtually any programming language, as you'll soon discover. Today we're looking at input validation. Didn't we already do that? Anyway, we did, at least a piece of it. We checked to see that numeric data is coming in when we expect numeric data. That's part of input validation. But there's a little more to that. Sometimes data gets into a program, but it's not reasonable. For instance, people generally work approximately 40 hours per week. Is 50 hours reasonable? Sure, probably is. Is 168 hours per week reasonable? Probably not. That's how many hours there are in a week. So we'd want to alert the user if he or she entered a number greater than 168. Probably even a number greater than 112, 2 8-hour shifts per day for a week. That's kind of unreasonable. We would also want to check for values less than 0, maybe even less than 1. You can't work less than 0 hours. But the user could accidentally enter a negative number. Again, we want to alert the user. Here's the nuts and bolts of what we're trying to accomplish here. This is input validation. We're going to look at the reasonability of the data. When you write a program, you generally write it to work with a wide range of data. If your program adds two numbers together, you're happy if it adds 2 plus 2. And you're just as happy if it adds 2 million plus 2 million. But take a fuel economy program. You divide miles driven by gallons of gas used. But is it reasonable to drive 1,000 miles in a day? Generally, probably not. How about 5,000 gallons of gasoline? Probably not. We like to kick that out as an error. And the same thing can be said for payroll. And this payroll program right here, if you had put in that I worked X number of hours this week, it would check to see if the hours are greater than 0 and less than 168. It would have a range that you could actually put it into. But you couldn't possibly work 6,000 hours in a week. There are not enough hours in the week. So it wouldn't be reasonable to ask that question. You'd want to partition this thing down. I told you that story a few weeks ago about the programmer at Kohl's who wrote the program where he restricted the ability to buy any more than 99 quantity of any item in the place. And an orphanage came in and bought a bunch of things more than 99. The program blew sky high. It could have been saved just by a reasonability check here. That program could have checked to see if the number is greater than 99, stop and have the person re-enter what they actually scanned there or actually entered into the computer and break that thing down and just buy 50 items first and buy another 50 and then another 50. And then the program wouldn't have blown sky high and it wouldn't have shut down all the cash registers ever. It was a mistake. It was an obvious mistake, a kind of a simple error, too, that the person made in writing that program. It was written in COBOL back then, which is still in use today. The language is still in use today. I don't know about Kohl's if they're still using that program, but it was there, and that caused a problem. So looking at reasonability is something you want to consider when you're writing your programs. And if in a program test scores, we can limit the data range to 0 through 100. You can't possibly get more than 100 on a test. At least tests we're looking at. There might be some tests where you're doing it, but if we're writing something for where the grade can be 0 through 100, and somebody types in 150, you want to kick that out. Bad entry. Let's put in something different here and give them an error there. So it's the kind of thing that the try-parse isn't going to catch. And you got to look at it with an if statement to look at that range to actually put that in place. So this is what makes programs long when you write this thing, because the validation piece, anybody can write, add 2 plus 2 together. That's no big deal. But checking to see if the 2 and the other 2 are reasonable takes a little more code. You got to pop all those things in there. So what we are trying to do is not only make sure the data is not garbage, but also that the results of any operation are desirable. We are helping the user enter meaningful data. But it's a little tricky. Maybe a better word for that is confusing. That's because the code that performs the operation is relatively short, but it has to be stuck after a series of nested ifs and prior to a series of nested else statements.
This next video is going to do exactly that. We're going to pull out the data that does the processing. Then we are going to set up all of our input validation code. When that's complete, we'll put our processing back into the program in the only place where we'll execute as having passed all error checking. That does sound confusing. This is easier to understand when you actually see it. Let's check this out.
Okay, we're looking at the loan qualifier program, and we're looking at it from the concept of reasonability of the data. What kind of salary can I expect to go in here? Well, when you think about it, who knows what the CEO is making, but he's probably not going to want a loan. But you probably need to think about the salary of the regular employees that are coming into the place and what they're going to be looking for. Certainly not a negative number. We don't want anything like that in here. And also we don't want anything maybe more than, let's give it a shot at $300,000 tops. Let's just do that. We can certainly think of that. How about use the current job? We know that they have to have 2 years on the job in order to make this thing work, in order to get a loan. 0 or 1 is going to not qualify for the loan. So, and a negative number is impossible. We're not going to have a negative number in this thing. So you can't have worked, less than 0 years. And at the same time, on the current job, how long could you've actually worked on the current job? Well, people only live to be what? 120 max, something of that nature. You're working like for 50, 60, 70 years maybe. Maybe 70 is a good number to put in there. Somebody worked at a place for 70 years. They're 90s, I think. But that's probably a reasonable number to put in when you're thinking about your years of current job. So if somebody enters in 100, you want it to kick out an error. So let's take a look at the code and see if we can't make this happen. So let's go to the code of this program right now and jump in here and see what we've got. We've got all this stuff in here where we're looking at the greater than 4,000, greater than 2. We did the try parse, so that data is coming in right. So we're getting decent numbers in there. We're putting in not alpha, but we still need to talk about the reasonableness of the data. So what we do is once we got in the data, this one successfully and this one successfully, we know it's a number coming in. We can start checking for the reasonability of it here before we go and make this decision. So this entire block right here is going to, where is that right here? It's this piece right in here, is going to say, yeah, right in here, this part right here is not going to be valid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this. Let's go ahead and pull actually this. We can go through as far as this positive piece here. I'm going to do a Control X on it. Control X to get rid of it for now from the program. We're going to put it back in, but we're going to put it back in a slightly different spot. We've got to add some things to it. So I'm going to do a Control X here, and we just pulled it. I'm going to, just for the safety's sake, I'm going to throw it down here. So it's sitting down here. We can grab it back in and pull it up again. So let's go back to our program, and if double dot parse text salary is fine, it's going to pass. If not, it's going to salary not valid. If the years comes in as not being numeric, it's going to say invalid years. Then we're going to have this piece right here. This is where the data is going to go. We're actually going to do the processing. Well, we're going to do a few more checks here. So we're going to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say, let's see, what are we looking at first? Probably years. Look at the form real quick. And we're looking at salary. Okay, so let's look at salary first. If, and we'll say DBL salary is greater than or equal to 0. Now let's even make it a little bigger than that. Let's make it 1,000. Oh, you certainly should have some kind of money coming in. The person making 1,000, and the salary, DBL salary, is less than or equal to 300,000. We'll allow that much coming in. We're going to put another if statement here. We're going to put the if else thing. We're going to set a couple braces for a brace. There it is. If that is true, if we're above 1,000, under 3,000, we're going to process here. Otherwise, another else. And we set the braces. And now we can actually say message box dot show and we can simply say salary not in range. Re-enter. And we'll put a semicolon here. That's great. Now, we need to check the validity of the years to see if that's within range here. So we're going to say if DBL years is greater than or equal to 0 and DBL years is less than or equal to 70. We talk about 70 years being the maximum a person might be working there. We can then set up our braces. That's legit. So we're going to put the real stuff in here. Wait, DBL years is going wrong here. DBL years. Don't know why that's coming up like that. DBL years. We'll figure that out in a moment why that's happening. But then we're going to else. 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 And then it has a set of braces. It just went away for a second there. And we're going to say that message box dot show is equal to years not valid. Years not a range. Invalid range. Re-enter. And give it a semicolon here. We're good. We still have a problem here. I don't know why we have this problem here. Less than equals 70. Greater than equals 0. What is our problem? Double year syntax. Oh, parentheses expected. There. Love IntelliSense tells you what's going on there. So that's there. So now we've got this in place where this should be able to work. Let's go ahead and do a save on this thing. And go ahead and actually run it. Program should come up eventually. Did I actually run it? Maybe I didn't. No, I guess I didn't. I have build errors. No, I don't want. What's my build error? Let's look at the error message here and see what I've got going on. Duh, of course. What's going on? I didn't put the stuff back in. I need to take this code down here and pop that in there. So let's do that. Control X. That goes into my area right here. It's one of the problems when you start messing with a program instead of designing it from the top. Now we've got all our ifs in here. If it passes the try-parse, if the salary is a numeric number, a double. If years is a double, great. If salary is within the range we're looking for, yeah. And if years is within the range, all this stuff down here, we then can go and do the actual processing, which is going to be telling us if you qualify for the loan or not. So all this little piece here that we had before is now surrounded by all this stuff. Setting up errors just tells the user what's wrong with it. So we've got all that input validation coming on here. Now we can run this. And we shouldn't have those ugly errors anymore. Do a run. There it is. It's coming up. Okay, now we can put something in. So let's pop in. We know that a $40,000 salary is going to get us a loan, right? So we'll put in that in 3 years and check the qualifications. And bingo, we do qualify for a loan. Great. Well, we stumble a little bit. We put in $40,000. That's fine. And we put in 90. And we put in 300. Our fingers slipped. Instead of 3, we put in 300. Check the qualifications. And bang, we get a years not in valid range. Re-enter. Oh, okay, great. Oh, my goodness. Okay. How about if we actually put in -3 or -2 check qualifications? It is not in the range. So it's not letting us put anything that's not in the range there. We can now set this back to, let's put it back to 3, but let's put our dollar amount in here to $400,000 and check the qualifications. And the salary's not in the range. I have to have something in there. I might have said so in the message that the range has to be this and that. You can certainly do that. You can qualify that thing. Okay, let's go put in about a negative $40,000. We actually hit the negative key when we're doing this thing, which is qualification. And again, it's not on the range re-enter. So it's forcing us to fix this stuff as we go along. 3,000. Not qualified salary is too low. We finally got a decent response of this thing. It's actually going into the middle and doing the qualification where it's supposed to be going. So it's checking all that stuff. Let's take a look at it through debugger, just so you can see how this thing runs when you're actually running it. So we're going to go ahead and pop a breakpoint in here somewhere along this. Here's one right here. It starts to get into the code. We'll start the run. And we'll watch how it actually goes through this process. We're going to go ahead and put in a salary of, let's put a legitimate salary in, make sure it's going right, to make sure it's checking the qualifications of this thing. So we'll put in 40,000. And we'll put in a year of 3. Check qualifications. It goes into debugger. And if I step through this with F11, we'll go through, we'll parse that data. It likes that and goes down to the next one. Got the years right. So it jumps down and now checks to see the range, the salaries within the range. And is it? Well, we know the salary is sitting in here at 40,000, so that's between 300,000 and 1,000. So it's going to pass that. It's going to check the years, which happen to be sitting at 3. It's between 70 and 0, so that's fine. So now it can actually do the processing of the data. Is that salary greater or equal to? Yeah, it's equal to 40,000. So it jumps down, checks the years, and we found out the years is, what is the years? The years are 3. So it's got that. You qualify for the loan. And it bounces out, jumps through all the else's, and gets out. And we're fine. We see our data come up. Great. If we happen to pop in that negative number, negative 40,000, and run it, the program will come up in a second here, I think. Where'd it go? It's back there someplace. There it is. Okay, let's bring it up and run this thing. Let me actually kill it once. I'll just kill it and start over again. We can do that. Let's get our debugger up. And stop debugging. There it is. Got to stop from scratch. So bring this thing up. And now let's run that program once again. There it is. Okay, and now let's put in that minus 40,000 and a 3. And we'll do our qualification check. We go in here, the program comes up, it checks to see if the salary is correct, if it's a numeric variable. It is. So it jumps down and then it brings that into the salary. So salary gets set at $40,000. So it's a legitimate integer. That's fine, or double. We're looking at years now. It likes that. It brings that in. Now it checks that range. Is 40,000 within 300,000 and 1,000? It's not. So it jumps down, and it jumps down. The salary is not in range. Re-enter and kicks it out. And that's the end of it. Program says salary not in range. Re-enter, and it gets us out of there. And we're allowed to then go ahead and make the repairs and properly put in the right number. And then we can actually run and do qualification. See, we got a breakpoint in there, so I'll just use the breakpoint. I'll stop the breakpoint here, and we'll do an F5. Oh, so there it is. It's getting out of there. We'll do a continue, and I'll actually run the program. There it is. 3 comes up. You qualify for the loan, and we're all set. So that's all it takes. It's a little extra code, as you can see, when you start looking at stuff like this. Your piece of your block of code that's doing all of the real work to get that answer suddenly is kind of insignificant when you start looking at all of the validation has to go in to make sure that this data is correct when it comes in from the user. The user is the person that can mess all this stuff up by putting in the wrong data. Once the right data is in, your program is going to run. But making sure it's the right data is what you've got to do in input validation. Try parse helps, and then those ranges will help.
Interesting, isn't it? Now, how those if statements cascade out and the else statements cascade back in with the error message. The indentation really helps you find where the processing code should go. You'll also note you have to think about what you check first. You need to check to see what's a number before you start checking the range of that number. This is where flowcharting really helps you organize your code and visualize your code before you write it. What you need to take out of this video is the try parse is done first to make sure the data is numeric. Once you got that down, the if else for range checking goes next. And the debugger, it's invaluable. It's invaluable. It helps you check your processing. You will watch the code flow through and see if it's actually doing what you expect it to do. See you next time. Thanks for watching. If you get a chance, please subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.